Previously on Self-Serving Skillet.
For these beans that I'm using tomorrow, I'm going to do a little prep work. Measure out 12 ounces of Negro Modelo in here. You don't have to use Negro Modelo, that's just what I wanted to drink. And then the rest goes in our beans. A little too much. Guess we get a little bit extra.
Thank you for joining me today, everyone. I'm using a new microphone, and wouldn't you know it that I forgot to turn the thing on. But this is fun. I can make myself say anything, like banana-mobile, amphibious dirigible. How about culinary masterpiece? That's right, these drunken beans are so good, and my recipe is vegan too. Don't worry. You can still add the bacon if you want, but I get enough smoky flavor from a couple of ingredients that I'm going to add later. Now, borracho beans usually want to be simmered in with the beer while you're making the beans, and while I do prefer it that way, I already made the beans. So, what do you do if you're using canned beans or already have made beans? Well, these have been soaking in beer overnight, and it does the trick pretty well. I'm going to separate the beer from my beans, bring my pan to a medium-high heat, add about 3 tablespoons of avocado oil. You can add any medium-high to high heat oil that you'd like, and while I'm waiting for that to come up to temperature, I'm going to remove the seeds from a guajillo pepper and chop it until the pieces are about the size of a bean. Normally I'd want to soak this, but this is going to simmer in with our beans for long enough to soften. Then, once the oil is nice and hot, in goes the half an onion we have left over from the refried beans recipe. While I wait for those to get nice and translucent, I'm going to prepare 4 cloves of garlic and the other half of that jalapeno that I used in my portion of the refried beans. When your onions are just slightly translucent and smelling good, add your garlic, which I have conveniently placed right in the middle of these peppers that I want to add later. Give that about a minute until the garlic smells amazing, then add your peppers. Stir that around for a minute, giving those flavors a chance to develop. Then I'm going to add a couple of glugs of my other smoky ingredient. I'm using an unaged mezcal. Mezcal is very similar to a tequila, but has a smoky flavor from baking the agave before it is mashed and distilled. Then, in with the beer, and bring to a simmer. I like to mash a couple beans as it adds to the texture of the liquid. In with this many beans, I like a tablespoon of cumin and a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, salt, and pepper. Remember, these beans were already salted, so don't go nuts. And then a handful of dried oregano. We're gonna stir in those spices, put the lid on to simmer, and there you are. You're all caught up, just in time for me to realize I haven't turned on the microphone yet.
It's been about 10 minutes in the pot. It's not quite ready yet. I'm going to chop my last 2 ingredients here. We have a little tip here that you can try yourself. I bought this cilantro maybe a week ago and realized I wasn't going to be able to shoot until right now. Treat it like a bouquet of flowers. I put this in some water. I put this in the crisper on the bottom of my fridge and wrapped it tightly in a plastic bag, and it's still luscious, it's still beautiful, it's going to taste amazing. The rest of this I may or may not chop up. It's mostly stems, but don't worry, it's not going to go to waste. I'm gonna dry it out in this bowl here, and it's gonna become future stock. And then the smallest Roma tomato that I can find. This is only gonna make 2 servings, so I didn't need much. I'm gonna take that stem off. And I like Romas because there's not much goop inside. I'm a big fan of goop, but when I just spent all this time taking the liquid out of my beans, I don't want to go put it right back in. And get those as small as you want them because they're not going to cook down very far. We're going to add them right at the end. And besides putting them in a bowl, we're done. Let's check them. Not quite. We're getting there though. Probably been about 15 minutes. Let's give it another 5, maybe 10. Should be good to go. It's been about 8 minutes. I think they're ready for the next step. You see how they don't really come back together that fast when I stir them around? That's what we want. They're nice and stewy right now. So let's add our tomatoes. Add our cilantro. We're going to stir that around just so that the flavors come together. Probably going to turn my heat a little more low than I already have it. Some people don't like cilantro. Some people are genetically predisposed to tasting soap. And that's fine. Use parsley. You noticed I used oregano when I was seasoning this. Use a little more of that. Just get something fresh in there that's not going to clash with our smoky flavors. All right, that looks ready to me. We're going to turn off the heat and dish up. Now what I made here was probably about 2 servings. One's going to be dinner today and one's going to be lunch tomorrow. I have here a 4-ounce ladle or somewhere around 120 milliliters. I don't love using it because it makes another dish, but it does let me tell you how much I made. So probably about 14 ounces altogether, which is a little bit over 400 milliliters. I'm gonna pour myself a little bit of this mezcal on the rocks, just so I can taste it alongside my Drunken beans. All right, borracho beans, everyone. A little garlic, tomato, really smell that cilantro, cumin. Oh man. Pretty smoky. It's not exactly a bacon smoke, but the flavor is there. That nice umami smokiness is right there. This is really good. Yep, and of course this is super pungent, smoky. It's basically a smoked tequila. There are other designations to mezcal. In fact, why don't you join me next time and I'm going to tell you all about mezcal, and I might even make a cocktail.